What we mean by change drivers is external or global pressures that trigger internal or local responses. We understand these pressures as reflecting change in the social, environmental, economic, and technological conditions that impact the harbour's decision making. In the social realm, these can include population change or changing political and regulatory arrangements, whilst environmental drivers can stem from climate changes and the heightened frequency of extreme weather events. Economic drivers, such as the collapse of international markets, can significantly impact business and industry operations, as can technological advancements and failures. It is important to note that these thematic drivers will change over time as new pressures and forces develop. Whilst preparing for Brexit and responding to the impact of COVID-19 are crucial drivers facing the harbour in 2020, by 2050, a new range of drivers will develop. As we work our way through this presentation, we will exemplify the kind of drivers that we believe Belfast Harbour will be forced to deal with. It is important to note that there may be many drivers that we have overlooked in this presentation, as we only reflect a selection of the forces facing the harbour. Accordingly, we are open to your feedback and suggestions on any drivers that we should consider. For coherence, we will continue to categorise change drivers along the four themes presented here: social, environmental, economic and technological, and will maintain the colour code associated with each thematic driver to highlight this. Our research attempts to embed a longer-term mindset to port development. As such, our future pathways are designed to be analysed over three separate timeframes until 2050. The purpose of this is to explore how alternative approaches to development will diverge over time as a range of expected and unexpected drivers arise. We recognise that over the first two timeframes, the practical realities of the three pathways will remain relatively similar, with many changes being implemented by each approach requiring time to come to fruition. By 2050, however, we will begin to witness much greater divergence between the pathways. By examining what port conditions may be like as far away as 30 years' time, we have a better opportunity to prepare for these and to consider how we can develop pathways to achieve particular outcomes. Now that we have clarified what change drivers are and why we break these down across three different timeframes, it is important to define the three different pathways that we will be testing these against. Learning from academic and grey literature, we find that there are three general pathways to development that ports follow. Firstly, stable futures. In this approach, change is based upon past experience and predictions of the future to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of operations. It reflects a short-term approach to managing change, utilising trend analysis. The second pathway, which we term as disruption and resilience, is an approach that attempts to foster resilience and adaptability within a port, embedding a capacity to respond to unexpected shocks. Informed by risk assessments, this approach has a medium-term focus and attempts to examine unknown realities. The third pathway is defined as managed innovation. This is a pathway that utilises innovation to flexibly steer towards managed long-term change. Transition management and long-term horizon scanning are used to inform decision-making in this approach. We discuss the defining characteristics of these three pathways in more detail in our background information report, where we clarify that there are differing methods of understanding change, as well as the degree of change that each pathway incorporates. To visually explain the future pathway analysis approach, we have created a diagram to demonstrate its key elements. It illustrates how the purpose of this analytical approach is to understand the various drivers that the harbour is faced with, how they impact port activities and operations over the short, medium and long term, and how different development pathways will respond to these and create alternative futures within Belfast Harbour. Finally, before moving on to our findings, it is useful to also discuss the three horizons of development model. This model, regularly used in business management, illustrates how different approaches to development can result in diverse outcomes over the long term. The scanning of horizons is not about trying to predict the future, but rather to review options so that evidence-based decisions can be made. The model demonstrates how developing beyond short-term thinking can improve a business's understanding of the potential opportunities and threats that may lie ahead. Whilst we do not fully incorporate this model into our study, it represents a valuable visualization of how alternatively informed pathways can develop over time and lead to very different outcomes. The first timeframe that we consider is in 5 years. In 2025, we perceive that the social drivers facing Belfast Harbour may include contributing towards the targets of the upcoming Belfast Agenda in regards to housing, employment and leisure activities, responding to regulatory change in the wake of Brexit, and realising the potential of the waterfront as a hub for creative businesses, recreational activities and nightlife. We suggest that the environmental drivers could include the need to address and act upon long-term climate data, as well as mitigating local environmental issues and health concerns stemming from pollution and biodiversity loss. In the economic sphere, the harbour may be forced to cope with economic instability and uncertainty brought on by COVID-19 and Brexit, whilst also attempting to maximise the port's commercial capacity and harnessing growing levels of tourism. Although we perceive technological advancements to emerge, we anticipate that in 5 years' time, the harbour will remain in the phase of assessing innovative developments and considering how port viability could be enhanced. Should Belfast Harbour follow a stable future approach to development, trend analysis would be used in an attempt to create economic stability and business certainty within the port. Imagining how this would mean in a practical sense, we envisage that the harbour may focus on realising three development objectives. One, to expand the size, capacity and reputation of the port, as well as creating a unique waterfront that attracts investment and visitors. This would likely involve major port infrastructure upgrades and new quay infrastructure to accommodate larger cruise ships. A second development objective could be to facilitate dynamic flows of business investment and to enhance the support given to incumbent industries that offer the greatest potential to realise growth. A final objective may include the desire to further increase the connectivity and accessibility of the port. This could involve reinvention of some harbour spaces and the objective of improving port-city relations, with the underlying intention of establishing a more proactive and inclusive dialogue with city residents. If a disruption and resilience approach to development was followed by Belfast Harbour, we imagine that risk assessments would be utilised as a means of analysing how the port can be best prepared for potential shocks. In the wake of leaving the EU and recovering from the social-economic impact of COVID-19, this approach may focus on implementing several new health and safety procedures, as well as establishing measures aimed at preparing management responses for potential financial downturns, as well as industry restructuring or environmental shocks. This could include initiating an economic diversity initiative that seeks to remove the dependency of the harbour upon a core group of sectors. To this end, Belfast Harbour would be likely to retain its reputation for accommodating and supporting world-class shipbuilding expertise, whilst also facilitating an application of these skills and research and development capabilities to high-tech vessels and the renewable energy sector. We perceive that the harbour could respond to predictions of future energy use and industry change by utilising supply chain links that can maximise the efficiency of new business development within the port. These developments might be complemented by the creation of several green growth initiatives, which involve embedding sustainability within infrastructure change and housing development. This could include the creation of floating houses that protect against flooding and new regulation that ensures all new builds are carbon neutral. Additionally, the harbour estate may decide to facilitate more active forms of travel, such as walking, cycling, and rapid public transit. In the managed innovation pathway, the emphasis is on technological advancements, automation, and synergies, with the objective of creating a flexible port that is driven by innovation. In 2025, we suggest that the harbour may have begun to experiment with innovation in energy, environmental sustainability, and technology. This could involve investments made in a range of smart port initiatives to help meet the increasing demands of global shipping. Smart technology uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and big data analysis to provide cognitive awareness to objects that were in the past considered inanimate. In this pathway, Belfast Harbour could also begin to work collaboratively with local businesses and education institutes to nurture the progression of these sectors locally. The achievement of Catalyst Inc. as a major business and employer for the region may enable local universities and knowledge institutions to link with industry as a means of realising the city's employment potential. Strong collaborative ties with port cities and institutions throughout Europe may also develop in this pathway. Additionally, electric and emission-free vehicles and vessels could be introduced, instigating a development pathway that is focused on embedding environmental sustainability within port operations. Advancing a further 10 years beyond this, we imagine that Belfast Harbour will be forced to respond to a new wave of external drivers. In the social sphere, these could include the increased population of Belfast and growing demand for goods and services that this will inevitably bring. Further regulatory change stemming from the establishment of new political realities, as well as growing civic unrest in the wake and response of rising levels of social inequality, will also shape the harbour's decision-making. Regarding environmental issues, we foresee that increased pressure placed upon the harbour to respond to growing energy demands and the need to comply with international targets regarding new renewable energy usage will be key. The enhanced levels of global trade and competition amongst maritime industries will also have a significant impact upon port operations. forcing the harbour to respond to collapsing industries and to make use of emerging innovation. As ports become increasingly digital, there will also be a requirement to enhance the levels of cybersecurity that Belfast Harbour holds. Following a stable future approach to development, Belfast Harbour in 2035 is likely to have restructured and redeveloped the estate to accommodate for growing levels of trade. This could include the deepening of harbour channels, the development of new key infrastructure, and the creation of superstructures to support a greater volume and size of visiting ships. Direct competition with other international markets in the realm of shipbuilding, specifically in Asia, may result in a need to diversify traditional industries and employment sectors within the harbour. This would hit business operations within the port and could result in job losses, with new internal investment possibly aimed at boosting the harbour's work on renewable energy. In 2035, the renewable energy sector is likely to be predicted by the harbour as the single biggest influence on local and national economy for coming generations. Furthermore, in light of recent challenging geopolitical relations, there could also be a greater emphasis on energy independence within the harbour. This is necessary to ensure economic stability and business certainty, as consistent and sustainable power supplies are crucial for port operations. We perceive that tourism will remain a key source of income for the harbour, with improved cruise facilities and enhanced investment in the arts and cultural sectors of Belfast, potentially attracting record numbers of visitors. Following a disruption and resilience approach to port development, the aim of the harbour in 2035 could be to realise a green transition. This may include the implementation of a recovery plan that utilises pro-environmental initiatives to efficiently respond to incidents relating to climate change, industry collapse and social unrest. This could embed sustainable planning and thinking within all levels of harbour decision making. Fuel and energy usage would likely become focal points of this transition, which could lead to huge reductions in the harbour's greenhouse gas emissions and push significant funding towards establishing a carbon zero port. Other significant results of the initial stages of this transition may include the recovery of ecological functions in the wetlands, the creation of a carbon sink that captures carbon emissions, and the conservation of protected species. The green transition would not solely focus on environmental issues, however, with many green jobs also being created within the estate, with work being done in previous years to create retraining facilities that allow for employees of industries in decline to move into new sustainable businesses. This could also involve greater outreach to local communities and schools, creating a pathway for future education and employment within the estate. This could be advanced as a means of sustaining a strong sense of local heritage within the harbour, as well as ensuring that the harbour outwardly supports the city. Following the establishment of innovation partnerships and research programmes, a managed innovation approach could enable the harbour to realise a range of technologies that have the capacity to understand how potential opportunities can be achieved within the harbour. In 2035, we perceive that Belfast Harbour may have invested significantly in the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things is a system of integrated computing devices, mechanical and digital machines provided with unique identifiers and the ability to transfer data over a network without requiring human-to-human or human-to-computer interaction. This can allow for the better control and management of the port and its operations through improved insight into and efficiency of logistical processes. This move to digitalization could eventually incorporate satellite imaging, remote sensing, cybersecurity, and artificial intelligence, generating unprecedented amounts of information on the surrounding harbour that is essential for its stewardship and safety. One way that these advancements could improve operations is by building a decision-making support system based on a predictive model of behaviour. As part of this work, Belfast Harbour could develop a vision of the future in the form of an entirely virtual port. Although initial steps have been taken towards this model in other ports, Belfast could develop as a real leader in this realm. Moving a further 15 years into the future, bringing us to 2050, we predict that Belfast Harbour is likely to face several social drivers that stem from the fragmentation of governance systems and the establishment of new political realities and regulatory arrangements. These are combined with the need for Belfast Harbour to respond to increasing storm surges, flooding, and unusual climate occurrences as the health of our global environment continues to decline. We also foresee that increasing coastal erosion stemming from higher sea levels and the heightened frequency of extreme weather events will impact both the harbour estate and its surrounding areas. There will also be a need to address recurrent economic declines and the collapse of new and novel port industries, as well as the failure of some technological innovations to fulfil their anticipated potential. Belfast Harbour will have grown significantly throughout the previous decades in both population and stature, attracting talent and expertise from across the world. To respond to this influx, a stable future approach could instigate major infrastructure development within the harbour, creating a hub for creative businesses, financial services, and higher education. The harbour could be pushed to significantly expand this estate to accommodate for the extra office space required to house these new services and inhabitants. Whilst this could bring investment and new employment into the harbour, it may also exceed development and carbon emission limits. Accordingly, work in flood defences and wetland conservation may be slowed, increasing the threat of storm surges and extreme weather events from disrupting port operations. In this approach to port development, the harbour is unlikely to have invested significantly in climate action measures, perceiving the financial investment of mitigation and prevention to outweigh the potential impact that climate change could bring to the state. Trend analysis will continue to guide port decision-making, with the previous decade's growth likely to inform a 10-year plan that outlines how new investment and technology could be required to update the harbour's position in the global arena. Competition from international markets could also push Belfast Harbour away from shipbuilding, potentially causing disruption and loss of employment, as well as leading to large sections of the harbour being in need of redevelopment. Titanic Studios could remain important employers for the port. It is predicted that international film companies may seek to experiment with alternative recording technologies and invest elsewhere. This could disrupt the growth of the sector within Belfast Harbour. Following a disruption and resilience management approach, Belfast Harbour is likely to acknowledge a growing need to prepare for environmental problems regarding sea level rise, the increased occurrence of natural disasters, and complications created by decarbonisation transitions. The harbour could develop accordingly, with their green transition ensuring that the estate is well prepared to efficiently respond to changing conditions, meaning that there is no large-scale alterations required. Increased support could also be given to sustainable industries, alternative energy sources, the implementation of a world-leading circular economy, and socio-economic recovery plans that support local communities and jobs. Although unexpected at the time, many technological innovations can fail to realise their potential and become redundant. This can cause huge economic damage to ports, forcing them to remove outdated and out-of-use technologies before assessing what alternatives are available and how they could be utilised. However, a disruption and resilience approach to development could enable Belfast Harbour to operate in a manner that is conscious of the propensity of technology to collapse. Accordingly, research programs could be used to pinpoint specific technologies that are interpreted as being sustainable, cost-effective, and efficient in their operation. Technologies could then be slotted into pre-selected positions to ensure that they are capable of offering scalability and can function as an integrated solution that fits the terminal's size, location, and overall needs. Also, this approach is well positioned to efficiently respond to recurrent economic declines, with work being done in previous decades to diversify port operations, move away from declining or unsustainable sectors, and to create several economic recovery funds for businesses in difficulty. Following a managed innovation approach, we predict that evolution in port activities, as well as developments within the Belfast Harbour estate, will be driven by smart technologies, engineering, and sustainable design. Artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and other technological solutions could enable Belfast Harbour to become more intelligent in terms of flow, situation, and customer management. However, the development and implementation of smart operations should not only be considered as a mere application of technology. The intelligence of a port is also based on its ability to develop a collaborative approach. The challenge is to create ecosystems, communities of interest, and practices that make the whole system smarter. This requires radical and large-scale change in systems design and operations, as well as policy development and management approaches. The degree of change that this approach has created for Belfast Harbour is therefore significant and could be conducted in a managed environment. This means that decisions can be tailored to the conditions of the port and are capable of latching onto specific economic, social, environmental, and technological opportunities that could not be realised through alternative avenues. The dynamic and flexible aspects of a managed innovation approach mean that Belfast Harbour can continuously improve, reducing losses and redundant costs, increasing employment opportunities, supporting new sustainable initiatives, as well as experimenting with new modes of efficient travel and trade. The harbour could make use of horizon scanning programs to reveal where and how the port can move next, with a plan to take the harbour through to the end of the century a realistic option. The three pathways that we create suggest a range of future opportunities for Belfast Harbour. Should a stable future approach be followed, short-term stability and certainty in port operations can be established, but this can leave the port susceptible to shocks and in need of large-scale recovery in the wake of economic or environmental disasters. The disruption and resilience approach to development clearly increases the efficiency of Belfast Harbour to respond to environmental, social, economic, and technological shocks, and the implementation of a circular economy boosts the sustainability of port operations. At the same time, however, this model can restrict the potential of a port from accessing particular opportunities and place risk management before radical evolution. The managed innovation pathway is unsurprisingly led by innovation. Long-term horizon scanning informs the decision-making of the harbour in this approach, with flexible steering enabling a greater propensity of opportunities to be maximised. Whilst it is driven by technological advancements, there is a focus upon collaboration, equity amongst port stakeholders, and ecological sustainability. To fulfill such eventualities, however, significant investment and faith in innovation is required. In total, these three pathways present very different outcomes for Belfast Harbour in 2050, and it is crucial to debate the value of each. We must consider what the strengths and weaknesses are of each pathway and question how they will contribute towards sustainable blue growth within the port. Developing beyond this phase of work, we plan to conduct 4 tasks to finalise this study. Firstly, we will refine the thinking based upon the feedback and map out what the most realistic and desirable features are for Belfast Harbour. We will then utilise this information to understand what pathway Belfast Harbour should follow in the short, medium and long term. We will then present this work back to you in a range of backcasting online interviews, scheduled to occur in October or November of 2020. In these interviews, we will use your insight to explore how Belfast Harbour can work backwards to realise this potential. Our final task will be to synthesise all of this information and write it up in the form of a report that will be submitted for the Moses deliverable that we are working towards. The deadline for this final step is February 2021. Thank you for taking the time to engage with this piece of work and for your valuable insight and critical feedback. It will go a long way to informing the future of Belfast Harbour. We hope you have enjoyed this presentation and see value in our research. We look forward to engaging with you further. Thank you.